Okay, so hello everyone. Today I have a great pleasure to meet with our next foreign visiting professors, with Professor Lina Papadopoulou from Greece, from Aristotle University in Thessaloniki. Lina, thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for accepting our invitation. It's a great honor for us to be with you, to have you at our very young university, at our Collegium Intermarium. So thank you very much once again, and I hope you had nice lectures last weekend, because today it's Monday, but last weekend on Saturday and on Sunday you had some lectures at our LLM program, postgraduate studies for more advanced, more experienced and older students. And my first question is, how do you feel after these lectures? How could you describe your first experiences at Collegium Intermarium? What could you say about our students and so on?
Okay, first of all, I have to say I am very thankful for the invitation to come here. So I'm very glad to be in Warsaw, and I'm very glad to have been in the college, because the experience was really very, very interesting and very, very good, very positive. I'm very positive because for me there are a lot of elements that were there, and they are very important for higher education. And I'm going to say what I mean. First of all, it is very important when there are not a lot of students. So it is very important to have what you call sometimes the boutique hotel. Mm-hmm. You call the Collegium Intermarium like that, and it is very important because this boutique university means that every student has his or her own value. Mm-hmm. They have the time to speak, to be heard, and the teacher, like myself, we have the time to respond to every question. I find this a very valuable experience, because in the massive universities where you have 200 persons, or even when it's a master student with 50 persons, still you don't have enough time to respond to everybody's questions, because you are squeezed somehow within the program. And I think it's a matter of the student's dignity, let's say, of the academic dignity of everybody, to have questions, to be able and have the time to pose those questions, and then have the answers, or at least the professor tries to give an answer. The professor is not a god, maybe he or she does not exactly know the answer, but the discussion already is very, very important, because it raises new questions. And to be honest, science, and especially social science, like law, for example, is more a matter of discussing things rather than have some ready-made answers, let's say that, okay, this is the truth, or this is what you should do. It's rather a discursive science, so to say, okay? Because we know even in the judgments of the courts, you have the majority, you have the minority. So what you need to find are the arguments. How did the applicant think? How did the court think? What would be the arguments from both sides? So when you have a pretty small class, then you can really explore all these argumentative avenues, let's say, or even small streets, which is very important. And that is the experience I have had with the students at the Collegium Intermarium.
Okay, so thank you very much for what you have said. It's a very nice compliment for us, because as you know, we'd like to create something different than massive higher education. We'd like to be small university. We are aware that if we want to guarantee the higher level of education for our students, we have to have rather small groups of students, and it allows us to give something more to these people. And thank you very much for that you appreciate it, and you agree that our direction, our goal is correct. But I suppose that the majority of the students last weekend were present online via Microsoft Teams application, and especially after the pandemic, unfortunately, this is rather normal situation at Polish universities, and I'm wondering what we could or what we should do with this new state of affair. I can say so. Most students nowadays prefer remote learning, e-learning, distance learning, and so on. And at the very beginning of Collegium Intermarium, we were thinking that as soon as possible after the pandemic, we are going to come back to traditional methods of teaching and learning in person at our headquarters at Collegium Intermarium. But I'm still thinking, I'm wondering whether maybe we should do something to, I don't know how to say. So maybe we are facing the next stage of education. Maybe e-learning and remote online teaching, maybe this is a future of education at universities, at academies, and so on. And what do you think about it? Should we insist on traditional methods of teaching in person, in situ, or we should conform to such new situation?
That's a very interesting question, and it does not have to do only with the Collegium Intermarium. It's a more general question, and I think all universities in the world, or at least in Europe, face this dilemma, so to say, especially when it comes to master programs. So what I'm thinking, and what I would suggest also to the Collegium Intermarium would be the following. I think that in the beginning of the semester, of each semester, there should be an obligation for everybody to come and be in situ, in presence, and then maybe collect also the prospective professors that are going to teach during that semester. So I think for 3-4 days they should be here in situ, get to know each other, and with some social program as well, which makes always things better, especially at this postgraduate level, when there are people who are adults themselves, they work, they have different environments where they come from, different jobs, professions. So everybody can actually give their input to that collective thing. And I think that 3-4 days would be a very good start. After that, during the semester, you can have the online remote learning, but I think you will much more helped if you have already met the students, or if you're a student, you have met your teachers or the other students who you are going to maybe write essays with, or maybe discuss some issues, some judgments when we speak about law, etc. So I think this first in situ meeting is very important. And then you can have online teaching. And then when we go to the online teaching, I think we need to adopt some new methods. The new methods of in situ teaching are not necessarily adequate for online teaching. What I mean is, for example, for online teaching, you need everybody to make their best, to have always a camera switched on. okay? Because sometimes for the teacher it's really very disappointing when you can see only 1 or 2 persons, whereas you have 14, 15, 20 persons online, and you can see only 2 faces. This is not a good sign for me, okay? So I understand sometimes maybe Philip or Lina might have a small problem, but next time they should be able to have solved the problem and to have the camera switched on, okay? And this is the first. The second one is that when you have online teaching, you need to have organized the digital environment yourself as a teacher. So, for example, I would have very much liked, for example, if I were the host on this online environment, to have organized, let's say, some more participative tools. There are some such tools on some of these, because there are different tools, you know, I mean, not only Web Teams, but not only Zoom, not only Blue Button, I mean, there are different. So we teachers and you as an organizer, as you know, of the whole thing, we need to experiment and to explore the technical possibilities. For example, sometimes I ask questions through a kind of a poll. Okay, so for example, you can say, okay, after we have discussed a case and we have discussed the majority and the minority opinion, you're the judges, let's vote. Okay, you are in the courtroom and you need to vote. Would you find this measure, governmental measure, as constitutional or unconstitutional, for example? Okay, so you can have some such methods of a more participative nature in order to keep the people awake, because sometimes it's a little bit tiring, you know, when you just look on the camera all the time, and at some stage you just feel like falling asleep. Or some people might even go to the kitchen and, you know, prepare something while the teacher is talking. A lot of people have kids. I know, because I mean, I have experienced that during the pandemic when we were always in front of a camera, and I had a small kid, 4 or 5 years old, so he had his own needs. But we need to find new methods to have the students to be more active. Okay, that's what I think. And then, of course, you need to have the students to present something on the camera, which also makes everybody more alert that they will need to be there and present their essay or present not something long. They don't need to speak like for ages, but just 4 or 5 minutes, okay? And then you go to the next student, and then maybe you can have a debate. Let's say, okay, you are in favor of let's say, wearing masks, let's say, during the pandemic, and I'm against, and then let us find the legal arguments, pro and contra, a specific governmental measure which is being discussed, or something that we envisage for the future, let's say, bioethics, and then whether we should have, I don't know, some technology allowed or not, enhancement, for example, genetical enhancement. Let's find the arguments pro and contra. Why should we allow for genetical enhancement, or why should we forbid genetical enhancement? Let's have a debate, and let's have the students exchange arguments so that they are more participative, okay? So we need to find these new methods. They were necessary already when we were in class, but I think they're 10 times more necessary now that we are on the camera. Okay, that's how I think.
Okay, I see. Thank you very much for all your advices. They are very important, and we'd like to improve some methods of teaching, online teaching at Collegium Intermarium, of course. But I have also a question about the situation at your university, Aristotle University in Greece. How the situation looks there? I mean the situation with online teaching. Do you prefer traditional methods of teaching in situ or online? You are open to some new forms of communication with the students. What could you say about
Yes,
it?
I mean, now after the pandemic, when it comes to undergraduate studies, we went back to the previous normality, let's say, so we meet in classes. But we did not 100% lose the experience and the possibilities of online teaching. For example, when there is a problem at the university, or when we have, let's say, a long weekend and we know the students will go back home for longer than they normally have, then maybe we can use the online teaching as well as an added instrument and an added tool. So I think this is a good tool because you can improve some aspects of the in situ teaching that used to have problems. So you can add, you can not replace, but not substitute, but actually find more methods in there. Now, when it comes to postgraduate studies, there are nowadays a lot of online master studies. This is true because, as you said, students are now expecting you to offer this possibility. Obviously, this opens up the program to more people from other cities or even other countries. Like, for example, in Collegium, we had people from Vienna or from Rome, or London, which was obviously very, very good. And it's very good to have from all over Europe and stuff. Of course, you win something and then you lose something. I mean, there is nothing that it is 100% the best solution. You always have pros and contras. You know, it's a balance that you need to find there. So that's why I suggested previously that it's a good thing to meet up in the beginning and then maybe go ahead with online teaching. And this is also what we try to do at the Aristotle University, to combine the methods so that we enable people to participate to master classes from other cities of Greece, or even from other countries, because we have also some English-speaking master programs. But of course, it's good to, at some stage, to bring everybody together in order, you know, to feel the human essence in more real terms. And
time to time.
yes, and it's differently when you see somebody, you look them at the eyes, and you understand better his or her position, and it's a better communication, definitely.
Yes, definitely. So you mentioned about foreign students, and of course, remote learning allows to have more foreign students who are able to take part in the course only online. And you have mentioned about some foreign students and generally Collegium Intermarium. One of our key ideas is the openness to foreign students, especially from the Intermarium region. And my next question refers to the idea of Intermarium. I'm interested in it. Did you know the idea of Intermarium before coming Collegium Intermarium? This idea is known in Greece for idea, or completely unknown? Because I know that a part of Poland, the idea of Intermarium or Free Seas initiative is rather uncommon, unfortunately. Yes. So this is something strange for foreigners, and you know, also abroad, we'd like to explain what does it mean Intermarium. What are the main goals of Intermarium idea in a global scale? So how the situation looks in Greece with with Intermarium?
Yes. To be honest, I didn't know a lot. I had heard of this initiative of the three Cs. I think it was by the president Levitz. I think he had spoken about it. Am I wrong? But no, I didn't know a lot. And to be honest, when we had the first, you know, the first invitation of you, then I searched what is this Intermarium, you know, and only then I really read more about it. So no, I didn't know a lot. So you cannot hear a lot of things in Greece about this initiative or what it involves. What this initiative involves.
But do you think that Intermarium idea, Intermarium concept, might be interesting, might be useful for Greek people, for example? Or this is you know, maybe Poland, you know, our countries are not neighbors, so maybe Intermarium, Three Seas is too far maybe for Greek people. I don't know. What do you think?
I wouldn't say it's too far, because actually in my lecture 3 days ago at the Collegium, I had on my web and on my slides there the picture of Intermarium, which you have on your website, and if you draw a mental line, let's say, from the South Adriatic to the Black Sea, I think it goes exactly over Thessaloniki, where I come from. So we're not exactly very far away from this, you know, let's say, triangle somehow between the three seas, because we are on the line, we are on the border. So we are, if you take Intermarium as one geographical region, let's say, we are quite neighbors, because we are quite on the border. So it's an interesting. To be honest, I have not thought, and I don't know how you can better use this concept. I don't know. It's something maybe you should think of new ways how you can use the concept and find maybe the similarities in this area, what connects the states that are actually within this, let's say, this triangle between the three seas. So I can't give you any good advice on that, to be honest, unlike when it comes to online teaching, where I have had made a lot of thoughts, because it actually has to do with all universities. But it's a good thing to speak about it, you know, I mean, to bring the idea forward and to let people know how you think about it, why you thought about it, which is the added value of it, you know, which is the similarities, or what connects these states, or what they could do together, and then invite other states to be supportive to that idea. So I would be glad to hear more, but as I said before, I'm not able to give any good advice to that direction.
But generally, what do you think about the idea of strengthening, of developing regional integration in Eastern and Central Europe, especially in a context of the war in Ukraine? So, in our opinion, the war in Ukraine shows that in our region of Europe, we need some more developed forms of integration, of international cooperation. You know, the project, this political project, Three Seas Initiative or Intermarium, are not contrary to the idea of European integration. In my opinion, we should look for something similar to, for example, Nordic Council. You know, a regional international organization consisting of Scandinavian countries, Norway, Sweden, Finland, Iceland, and Denmark. You know, and Nordic Council, as a regional organization, is not a problem from the European Union perspective.
No, I mean, whether it is a problem or not depends on what they do, on substantive questions, not by being there or by existing. So I totally agree with you that this is not a problem. And especially when you have to face such a challenging and dramatic situation like the war against Ukraine and the refugees, and you are very close to the war side, and it's very important that Poland has accepted so many refugees from Ukraine, and you have not only accepted them, but you have given them a very good way of life, which I find it is very, very important from any side where you look at it. So I totally realize what you are saying, because we had the same issue, for example, the states which are Mediterranean within the European Union. So we might face some similar problems like Greece, Italy, France, Malta, Cyprus, Portugal, Spain. So you can have the European South, let's say. So I can understand there are specific particularities, specific problems, specific ways to see things sometimes, or even interests within the European Union. So I can't see a problem as long as you said, all these different, sub-regional formations like the Nordic countries or the Mediterranean or the Intermarium countries, they work towards European integration as such, and they base their doings, their activities on the same, of course, values, the same human rights values, the same democracy, rule of law, and equality between men and women, and of course, peace. Okay, so I would find a problem, for example, if somebody was now in favor of Putin and in favor of the war, of this imperialist, aggressive war, which is against any sense of international law. But as long as this is not the case, and we are all on the same page, let's say, with the basic things, then I don't find a problem.
Okay, perfect, perfect. And I have only, I have last question to you. And I'd like to refer to the idea of classical education. You are from Greece, from the country, from that region where the idea of academy, of Lyceon, where the philosophy was born. So I'd like to ask you about what is for you classical education? How could you describe the idea of classical education? What does it mean for you, from your Greek perspective? What could you say about it?
Yes, there is something which got lost, and I'm afraid that we are not in a position to gain it back, which is the very word of university, the homo universalis. I mean, a person who can speak not only about his or her own science, the little piece of science that he serves, he writes about, but has a more universal, knowledge about everything, how Aristotle was, or the ancient Greek philosophers, who were not only philosophers in the today's meaning of the word philosophy, but there were also scientists. Okay, so they knew about chemistry, about astronomy, different physics. So not only what we call today philosophy or political science or legal science. I mean, if you read those people there, of course, but the amount of knowledge that there was available back then, it was, I don't know, very small piece of the knowledge that we have today. So today it is humanly impossible to be able to speak. There are a few people who can really understand medicine and physics and maths and law science and political science and sociology. I mean, how many people can they really, it's humanly impossible, I think. But so for me, classical education has to do with that. So maybe I would think if we would like to go back to that ideal, we should maybe think of something that you might find a kind of maybe in the American college, where
especially liberal arts colleges.
Yes,
I think.
Yes, where before studying something very specific, you need to have a broader idea of how science looks like. Of course, you cannot be expert, you cannot go deeper. This is impossible, but maybe have a wider idea, because even, for example, when we speak about the legal science, we say, okay, law is a science, a social science, but how much, as lawyers, when our students graduate from the law school, how much really social science have they studied? I'm not even speaking about physics and medical law, medicine, in order then to study medical law, for example, or in order to speak about technology and the law. How much technology have they really studied? But even the social sciences, sociology, political science, psychology, social psychology, because that plays a very important role. So maybe if we would like to go back a little bit, because we can't regain everything from classical education, maybe we should enhance this, let's say, multidisciplinarity for all the students, at least in their first year, or maybe during their studies, to be able to see some other stuff, so that they're not very, very narrowly minded. When they finish, they might be experts, let's say, in commercial law, but then they cannot understand anything about how the real economy works, how people think about social psychology, as I said before, despite the fact that the economy depends so much on psychology. Yeah? But nevertheless, they know all the judgments of Court of Justice of the European Union on competition law. And it's not really working after all very, very well.
Okay, I see, and I agree with you. We have, in fact, we have the same meaning of classical education, and we see that, in fact, that there's a lack of classical studies at many modern universities, unfortunately, and we'd like at Collegium Intermarium we'd like to change this situation. Of course, it's not an easy task. It's a big challenge.
Yes.
And a part of introducing some new programs of studies, there is other challenge too. How we could convince modern young people to the idea of classical education. I'm afraid that for the majority of young people, this notion, the notion of classical education or classical university, is very strange. This is for them. I'm afraid that for many of them, this is a concept from the entire different world, from the past, that which should be forgotten and so on. And I don't know what we could do, what we should do to firstly familiarize young people with the whole concept of classical studies, classical education, liberal arts studies, and so on. This is the first challenge, and the second one is to show them, to all of these young people, that classical education is important not only for their own knowledge, but that it is important and very useful in their future jobs too. Because classical studies, and there's a lot of research showing it, that classical studies are very good tools for learning some soft skills. And soft skills, you know, are more and more important for employers nowadays, because you know the situation, this economical situation, and the situation in many jobs are so dynamic that the employees should be dynamic too, should be able to conform to many new challenges and situations during their work. And I think that liberal arts studies and classical studies might be a very good way to guarantee such skills for young people. But you know, this is a challenge for us, for professors, to show it to young people, to convince them, to, you know, to, first of all, I think we need maybe a new kind of dialogue, debate with young people. I don't know.
Yes, and I think you're absolutely right in what you're saying, so I really don't have a lot of things to add. The only thing I would like to add is actually this should be not only a task of the universities, of the higher education or tertiary education, but also of the schools, high schools as well, because I think kids learn from there. And when they don't get it, they don't get the idea that you very correctly talked about, then it's rather maybe more difficult, even more difficult to gain them in favor of this idea or this way of seeing science afterwards. So I think it's something that the whole education from the beginning, from the primary school, should actually lead us. As societies in general.
Yes, that's true. That's true. That's true. That's a challenge, and I think, Lina, that in the future we are able to, you know, to face these challenges together, and we stay in touch. I hope we stay in touch, and I hope you will come back.
It will be my pleasure.
For us too, it will be a great pleasure, and I hope we will stay in touch, and in the future, for example, at the second edition of LLM program, because you are right now in Poland, and you had your lectures at the first edition of LLM program, but in October this year, we are going to launch the second edition of LLM program. So I think that if it's not a problem for you, it would be a great honor for us to have you as a lecturer at the second edition of LLM program too.
For me, it will be a pleasure and an honor as well. Thank you very much, Philip.
Thank you very much, Lina, and we stay in touch, as I said, and thank you very much once again for coming and for accepting our invitation. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip.